Hi friends, let's do a little something for St. Patrick's Day. Today what I'm making are two dishes that I associate with Irish American celebrations of St. Patrick's Day, and those dishes are going to be a fried cabbage with butter and bacon, and the second thing I'm making is scones with dried cranberries. And I think you'll enjoy both of these recipes. Now the cabbage, I probably wouldn't normally make it in the Instant Pot, but because the Instant Pot has a good saute function and it has the pot has nice high sides that are good for a recipe like this one, I figured I'd go with the Instant Pot and see how that works. So first thing I'm going to do is heat my Instant Pot using the saute function and saute on high, and that's how you do that. Okay, so while that's heating up, I'm going to measure the butter, and I'm going to need 2 tablespoons of butter for this recipe. Let's just chop off about 2 tablespoons of that. And I need 4 slices of bacon, and I got thick cut bacon because I think it will work best for this recipe. Oops, while I was getting the bacon out of the package, an extra slice of bacon fell out onto the cutting board, and I wasn't going to put that back in. Is there really anything such as extra bacon anyway? Cut these strips of bacon into strips of about 1/2 inch. So we've got a bunch of 1/2 inch pieces of bacon. Okay, now as the Instant Pot heats up, you're going to add the butter to the Instant Pot and the bacon. Okay, now we want to stir this bacon and butter mixture because we want to fry that bacon and get it a little bit crispy. That could take you maybe 7 to 9 minutes. The Instant Pot isn't the hottest saute pan, so you may find that when you're using it for recipes like this, things could take a little bit longer than the recipe suggests, but it still should do a fine job. Well, that smells really good. Now, that's going to take a little while to finish frying, so I'm going to tend to some of the other ingredients while that's going. I'm going to dice an onion. Okay, it's my onion diced roughly. Just keeping an eye on that, make sure it doesn't burn. I want to get 3 cloves of garlic chopped, peeled and chopped. Okay, there goes the garlic in with the onion. Okay, I've seen that the bacon is starting to shrink and get crispy. I don't want it to burn, so okay, when it gets to about this level where you can kind of see the crispiness, I'm going to momentarily lower the heat and remove the bacon to a paper towel. My pan is still hot. I'm going to reserve this for later use. So I'm going to quarter the cabbage. This is half of a cabbage that's been cored. So I'm going to quarter it, then cut each quarter across, and then make about 1/2 inch slices so I kind of get strips of cabbage. Return my Instant Pot to high, saute, and now I'm going to fry the onions and the garlic in the fat. Oh, that smells good. So if there's any question about whether it smells good to fry garlic and onions in bacon and butter, No question, it's very good. All the bits that stuck to the bottom of the pan are being scraped up now and mixed in with the onion and the garlic. Okay, these onions are really soft. They're not yet translucent, but they're quite soft. So now I'm going to add the slices of cabbage to the pot. I've added half the cabbage to start out with just so that I can get it coated with the fat to make it a little bit easier. I don't want to be mixing this and have the fat splash up at me. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to add a half teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add the rest of the cabbage. Once the rest of the cabbage is in there, I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt and about a quarter of teaspoon pepper. Now mix that around. Get the cabbage all coated in the fat. Just be careful while you're doing this because, as I said before, you don't want to splash any fat up on you. Okay, you want to keep stirring this until the cabbage just starts to soften. That should take about 5 minutes. Okay, now that my cabbage is a little bit soft, I'm going to reduce the heat on the saute function of the Instant Pot to normal, which I take to be medium. Now, if I were doing this on the stove, I would probably turn it down to a medium-low. We're going to cover this with a clear cover if you've got one. Use whatever cover that you have. So I'm going to let this go for 12 to 15 minutes, and I'm going to check it periodically during that time to make sure that it's not browning too much on the bottom. I'll give it a stir just to make sure everything's cooking evenly. Okay, it's been about 14 minutes, so it's time to check on what this looks like. All right, so I don't know if you can see in the video, but I had lowered the heat to less. After about 3 minutes, I realized that medium was too hot, so I figured less would be a better setting. I don't know if you can see that, but there's still a little bit of liquid in the bottom, so I'm going to increase the heat in order to stir this and let some of that liquid cook off. Yeah, I'm going to add about 3 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. Okay, now once that's incorporated, I'm going to transfer it to a serving bowl. Oops, I try not to make a mess while I do that. Okay, now I'm going to reintroduce the bacon, which is quite crispy but not overcooked, into the cabbage. No need to really mix that in much. You can just let it sit on the top where it's going to sit there and look delicious. And there you have it. Cabbage cooked in bacon and butter and Worcestershire. And that's just going to be delicious. I hope you give this one a try. Scones are a great pastry that people enjoy for St. Patrick's Day, and they're pretty easy to make. So let's make some. We're going to start with a bowl here. And to that bowl, you're going to add 2 cups of flour. I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to whisk those together. Add a 1/3 cup of sugar. Mix that in. To that, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of shortening. And then we're going to mix those in with a pastry blender. So this makes it easy to cut in shortening, continue cutting in until you can tell that the fat is kind of incorporated in tiny beads. Okay, when that's properly cut in, it kind of has a consistency like, people say meal, but you've got little beads that are coated with flour in there. So we'll put that aside for now. And in another bowl, we're going to crack an egg. And we're going to beat that egg. Once the egg's beaten, I'm going to combine it with 3/4 of a cup of cream. Flour and black clothing don't go really well together, so we'll make a little switch here. Okay, so now that the egg and the cream are combined, I'm going to add them to the dry ingredients. Fold together those things to incorporate the liquid and form a dough. You don't have to add fruit, but I'm going to add just a handful of dried cranberries and mix those in. You could use currants, you could use raisins, you could use whatever fruit you want, or you could use no fruit at all. So now what I'll do is turn it out onto a floured work surface, form it into a ball, more or less, flatten it. The idea is to get it to stay together and then roll it out into a shape that we can cut into biscuits. So get your roller. I find that this dough is not super sticky, so you're not going to have a lot of trouble. I think this is sufficiently rolled out, and I would say it's about 1/4 inch. I don't have a fancy cutter, but I do have a can that I'm going to use to cut this into biscuits, and they're going to be fairly large, so I might not get a dozen because this is kind of a sizable can. I carefully cut both ends off, and then I put shortening around the end that I'm going to use to cut, so that the scones will come out of the can nicely. So then just cut the scone, pop it off into your hand, and I'm going to place it on a parchment paper lined pan, like that. So we'll make a dozen of these. I clearly rolled these too thin because I've got 15 fairly clean cut scones and a little leftover dough I formed into kind of a giant monster scone. So we're just going to plop that in the oven and see what happens. So transfer this to a waiting heated 375-degree Fahrenheit oven, and that will bake for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, this is what you end up with. You can tell they're a little bit thin, and that's because I rolled them thin. I got more out of them, but here you can take a look. They're pretty nice looking, and they smell amazing. They smell like shortbread cookies, and they're really crumbly. Give you an idea of the texture there. And you can put butter on these. I was planning at first to put butter on these, but then I thought, let's try them without butter. They're not really sweet. They're like a shortbread, even a little bit less sweet than a shortbread, but they're delicious. They're a great snack. Thanks for watching this video of St. Patrick's Day foods. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this one. Share this video with your friends who you think might enjoy it, and leave a comment down below to tell us what you think about the recipe. Tell us if you tried the recipe. Tell us what your favorite St. Patrick's Day celebration foods are. Thanks for watching, and remember what Bob and I always say: you can cook anything.